So today we're going to share a little bit about Activate and the Activate New York program. My name is Eva. I am the fellowship manager for Activate New York. We have some other staff on the call today who will share, staff and fellows. So in addition to myself for the Activate team, we have Andrew Chang, who is the managing director of Activate New York, and Aaron Lindgren, who is our partnerships manager for climate and carbon management and works very closely with the New York team. We also have two of our wonderful Activate New York fellows. So Garrett Boudinot from cohort 2022 and Gus Marquez from cohort 2023 will be able to share a little bit about their experience. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to the Activate Fellowship. I imagine some of you have read our webpage, so this will be a repeat, but just in case there are folks on the call who are hearing about Activate for the first time, I'll highlight a few points. Andrew will share with us a bit about the Activate New York program and our specific experience, and then we'll touch on a few partnerships that are specific to New York. Aaron will share a little bit about carbon management and our concentration there, and I will touch on our energy storage partnership with New Energy New York. Then we'll get to hear from Garrett and Gus, and then we will hand it over to you guys to ask questions. If you have questions while I'm talking or while people are speaking, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I also forgot to mention Kerrigan and Rick from our national recruitment team are on the call with us as well. And so they will help to answer questions as they come in the chat, or we will try to cover any unanswered questions during Q&A / let you guys come off mute and ask your question out loud. So with that said, I will jump into the fellowship overview. So who is Activate? Activate's mission is to empower scientists to reinvent the world by bringing their research to market. We know that there is a lot of great technology out there, and we know that there are a lot of really challenging problems that the world has yet to solve. And so we are trying to bridge the gap of helping people who are the best in their field in science and have come up with innovations that could meaningfully change the world to take those first steps in building a first prototype and finding first customer and getting initial funding that it takes to bring that product eventually to commercial scale. We exist to support the fellows and entrepreneurs who work with us. Activate is a nonprofit, so we do not charge fees or ask for equity in order for you to participate in the fellowship. We are looking to focus on people who make things. So essentially looking at people who have a physical innovation as opposed to a pure software innovation or software-based company. It's not to say those companies don't do great work, but the way that Activate is structured in our experience are really designed to help folks who are bringing a physical product to market. We're also looking for entrepreneurs who are building something for a reason. So there's lots of global challenges. Obviously, climate change is one of them, but there are also challenges in water, in health, and in many other places. And so we are looking for folks who have a vision for how their innovation might change the world for the better. What do we offer? We offer time and funding so people can take the time that they need to really build their company in the way that is best for the company, best for the technology, and best for the world. So we offer a living stipend to give you 2 full years of support for your own needs. This is between 80 and 110,000 a year, plus travel allowance, health insurance, and relocation. In addition to this, we offer 100,000 in R&D funds that can be used by the company. This is a recoverable grant. And you have access to at least 75,000 and typically more in additional flexible capital in the form of safe notes. That capital is optional because it is safe notes. That does give away some equity in your company, so you may decide not to do that. But if you are interested in that additional, that is available. We also have an expert community. So Activate fellows constantly say the best thing about the program are the other fellows, which I don't take personally because I agree. So first of all is working and building your company surrounded by people who are doing the same really hard thing that you're trying to do. You also have access to the Activate team and our managing directors to provide advice, connections, and thought partnership, as well as we've built up a network of other scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs that may be able to help you along in your business. And we will do our best to connect you with people who have the answers to your questions. Additionally, we offer training. So we have a curriculum tailored for folks who are starting hard tech companies for the first time, and one-on-one mentorship to help you address specific professional or technical challenges. We also offer various intensive workshops, virtual classes, and professional development opportunities throughout the year that are more a la carte. So based on what you need and are interested in, we are building both a library of learning and also opportunities to learn with other fellows. And we work with laboratories, try to understand what is available and help you to access them to forward your work, and also to get some advice from folks as you are thinking about retaining your IP while making use of people's physical space and technology. And so far, we've seen results. So we have been here since 2015, and we have worked with 188 entrepreneurs who have created 145 science-based companies. These companies have gone on to earn 1.3 billion in follow-on funding, including both dilutive and non-dilutive capital, and have created 1,300 new jobs. So this is what we hope to see. Every company's journey will be different, and we will work with you to define your success as you enter the program. But it is great to see, to me, this funding and these jobs mean that work is being done, and that the world is being changed. So we are always happy to see that. And we are located in 4 physical locations, plus our Anywhere community, which is remote. So this is the Activate New York webinar. We do have a community in Berkeley, which was our first community, and in Boston, and we are launching a community in Houston for the first time. If you are interested in learning about any of our other 4 communities, each of them has a page on our website, and also there will be some similar webinars like this one coming up over the next few weeks. And with that, I will pass over to Andrew to share a bit more about Activate New York.
Thanks, Eva. I'm a little biased, but I think New York is one of the best places in the world to start a climate company now. And in the next couple of slides, I'll talk a bit about the community and just the incredible momentum that New York and New York City has moving forward. So let's jump into it. One of the things that we have here in New York is we have fantastic partners. We are working with the New York State Energy Research Development Authority, that is NYSERDA for short, as well as Columbia University as our very first anchor partners. We have since expanded those anchor partnerships to other universities and organizations such as New Lab in the Navy Yard, as well as NYU, CUNY. We've been having conversations with other universities upstate and in Long Island as well, and to continue just to grow our footprint across New York to really support the emerging communities that are building incredible companies that help move the world forward. A lot of the companies that we take into our cohort, we are technology agnostic, but the majority are climate related. We also have a concentration around carbon management, which Aaron will also talk a little bit about, where we look at technologies in the carbon, any type of drawdown technology utilization, as well as storage. But at the core of everything is our companies are building physical products. They are dealing with molecules and atoms, and because of that, there's a lot of things that are a little bit more difficult that the harder tech side of the community needs to get right, and that's why that's where we spend most of our time, really, as Eva mentioned before, setting up the right partnerships to help streamline some of the more difficult or complex things around getting access to labs, finding the right partners at the early stages that are long duration, that are investor aligned, and that can generally help move the needle for a lot of early stage hard tech companies. And before we move to the next slide, I just want to highlight, one of the things that we do is we also look for partners that can help us on the deployment side, as well as we start to move a lot of, or as you start to move a lot of your technologies from the lab to the market. You need to also demonstrate that and do that with pilots in the real world. And this is an example of one of them, Biocarbon. You'll hear more from Garrett later, deploying one of the world's first real-time measurements of carbon removal in water, and he did that with a partnership with Governor's Island, and that's a picture of it there, and I'm sure he'll go into more details later around that. Let's go to the next slide, Eva. So what does our community look like? Eva already mentioned that one of the biggest parts about the fellowship is the community. I think that is the magic around Activate is really all the people that come together every other Thursday to build that community. It typically is a Thursday afternoon where it gets started with a lunch. We also usually bring in a speaker, and then there are usually one-on-ones with that speaker, as well as a happy hour, whether that be a small happy hour that we do internally, or whether that is a happy hour that we do with some of our ecosystem partners that is more of a bigger event. And some of the types of talks that we usually have are usually founder talks, pioneers that have built companies in emerging industries. We also have investors in the harder tech side of the spectrum come and talk about trends and what they look for. We also do a bunch of things together as a workshop, to help you refine your pitch, to practice that, and then also to help bring in the right partners, whether that be on the regulatory side, on the local or federal or state, to really help understand what are some of the regulatory that's going to be helping lubricate some of the work that you guys are doing as you get to market. On the ecosystem side, we spend a lot of time really building out the partnerships to expand the network for all of you. So we have worked with a lot of fantastic organizations like the Direct Air Capture Coalition. There are accelerators like SOSV. NYCERDA has a number of accelerators as well, such as Carbon to Value Initiative, Urban Future Lab, the Clean Fight, and others that are really helping to build the ecosystem and a pipeline of companies as we move from the earlier stage to later stage. And our core, what we focus is really try to be the first 2 years of your commercialization journey, and then help you build the networking and partnerships to continue that journey onwards after those first 2 years. Lastly, I can say that we have some office space where we meet every other Thursday here in Manhattan. We're right next to Grand Central Station, so it's pretty convenient. And it is a space that we also use for events, networking, happy hours, and as well, we love our fellows to come in and use that space to hold meetings, whether that be with investors or future partners. With that, I'll hand it back over to you, Eva.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Appreciate it. I'm actually going to hand it to Aaron to just give a quick highlight of what are some of the benefits of having a concentration in one area, and some of the things that Activate does specifically to support folks working on carbon management.
Awesome. Thanks, Eva. Like she said, I'm Erin Lindgren. I'm a partnership manager here at Activate. And one of the things I focus on is carbon management. And just to kind of clarify, maybe we could go to the next slide. I think it was mentioned, but lots of our carbon management fellows are located in New York because of the amazing ecosystem and the resources provided by NYCERDA. Nonetheless, just as a disclaimer, even if you aren't a carbon management person, you could still apply to Activate New York. And if you are a carbon management person, you can apply to other Activate communities besides New York. So just to the giant disclaimer before we start. Also, carbon management tends to be a fuzzy term, as this is more of a nascent sector. It means different things to different people. So at Activate, we define carbon management as kind of encompassing 5 different buckets, which are carbon removal, point source capture, utilization, storage, and MRV. So if you are working on any of those types of technologies, we would consider you working in carbon management. And then kind of what do we do as a partnerships team to help support our carbon management fellows? This picture is from an event we did 2 weeks ago at the FECM and ETL Carbon Management Project Review meeting in Pittsburgh. And so what we did was we organized kind of a side networking event with FECM to get some of the government officials and other researchers working in this area, mingling with our fellows and investors, and other folks within the carbon management ecosystem in more of a casual environment to make connections to really try to see how we can best foster and advance the commercialization of carbon management technologies. So this is just a good example of one of the things that we do to try to get our fellows in front of the right people and making the right connections to kind of advance their tech and their businesses forward. This is a non-exclusive list of other things that we do to help support our carbon management fellows. As Andrew mentioned, we have really close working relationships with lots of groups in the ecosystem that are really, really dialed in on certain types of carbon management, like the DAC Coalition, like Carbon Business Council, and like Carbon Removal Alliance. In addition, we're really trying to bolster our relationship with government funders to make sure that our fellows are connecting with these folks to really understand what folks like FECM are looking for when they're issuing grants, and how do we best position our fellows to secure that non-dilutive funding. In addition, the last bullet point on here is really exciting. Frontier recently announced their most recent purchase cycle, and 3 Activate companies received pre-purchase agreements from them. And that's amazing in and of itself. We're so excited for our fellows who receive those. But what's really special about this round is that Activate and Frontier partnered separately to basically have a new funding vehicle available solely for Activate fellows who may not be considered within the Frontier portfolio for that that cycle round, but nonetheless would still be able to get a pre-purchase agreement at a slightly lower amount in order to basically signal to the market that Frontier has confidence in them and are excited about their tech and want to see them move forward. So I just wanted to highlight that. But that's what we do. We're here to try to make sure that our carbon management fellows are connected to the ecosystem and kind of getting the support and connections that they need from us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin. One more piece of information before we shift to our fellows about another area. So Erin was mentioning carbon management and the work that Erin and Andrew have been able to do in building relationships with sector experts and to really plug into spaces that are beneficial to fellows. We are also partnering with New Energy New York, which is based in upstate New York. University of Binghamton is really leading this initiative, and they are focused on energy storage. And this relatively newer partnership helps us to further support fellows who are working on energy storage. I'll explain what I mean by that a little bit in a moment. But I would just flag for this one, as to Erin's caveat on the first one, we definitely have fellows working on energy storage in other communities. And this specific partnership can be either the New York community or the Anywhere community, because it does look for folks who are based in New York State, but some parts of New York State are quite far from New York City. So basically, just to share what energy storage includes is sort of all aspects of the battery, so any component material and compositions for various parts of the battery manufacturing methods, system management and performance analysis. And so in addition to all of the benefits of the Activate program, fellows who are working on energy storage within New York State can access a lot of secondary supplemental support from this coalition, which has an amazing expertise both in basic battery research at the university level, but also in building and expanding battery technologies. This sort of there's been a growth in upstate New York of this tech, which is looking to increase given the onshoring pressure from the IRA. So if this is an area of work for you and you're part of the Activate New York, Activate Anywhere communities, you would receive access to a large number of development, testing, and manufacturing resources, access to dry rooms and cell manufacturing facilities in upstate New York, and also access to certain internships programs for technical and business side labor from students at these universities. So this is another great way to plug into a specific industry and expertise within and during the Activate Fellowship. So with that, I'm going to pause my screen share, and we are going to switch over to hear a bit from 2 of our Activate New York fellows. We're going to start with Garrett and then go over to Gus to share a bit more about their experience.
Great. How much time do I have? I get the rest of the hour?
You have 3 to 5 minutes.
Great. Okay. Well, I say that because I could spend the rest of the hour talking about how great Activate is. So yeah, my name's Garrett Boudinot. When I started Activate, or right before starting Activate, I was at Cornell University, where I was running a research program on a specific type of soil-based carbon removal. And going into Activate, I had a hypothesis about how we could commercialize some of the specific uh, a specific part of that work that I was doing to really benefit the whole carbon removal ecosystem. And as Aaron was saying, as we're all kind of aware, if you're in that space, like we say it's nascent. I think what we really mean is it's weird. And so having so one of the things that was really appealing to me was Activate New York's specific focus in carbon management, because it really takes a village to understand how this constantly evolving market is shaping, as we try and develop technologies that might be ready in 6, 9, 12, 18 months to tap in, because the market will be different there. So that's where the partnerships that Activate has, and the connections that they can make for us, are so helpful. We can really get industry experts in the room with us to learn from them, and hopefully ourselves then become industry experts. So that's one side. The other side is my background was in science and chemistry, but as Andrew said, like the goal is to move molecules, and so that required some engineering, that required hardware engineering, software engineering, electrical engineering. It required a lot of business development to get devices out to customers, all things I had never done before. And so over the past year, I'm really proud to say that with Activate support, I now have a team of 7 hardware engineers, software engineers, business development folks, where we're building projects or products and deploying projects. That was my team, or some of my team that you saw there, with one of our products out at the Governor's Island, where, like Andrew said, we're doing the thing. We're removing carbon. We're measuring that we're removing carbon. We're improving the ecosystem while we do it, and that's what I set out to do, and couldn't be more happy that in just a year we've been able to do it. I saw some of the chats there, so I'll address some of this. Like, as I mentioned, I was up at Ithaca, so I spent the first several months getting on the bus, coming down to New York City for the events, and it was worth every second that I spent on the bus to be out here. They really make it worth the time, both in the community building, getting to know and learn from other fellows, but also in those connections. My personal scenario was, I started recognizing all the great opportunities here, and I just packed up and moved down here, and actually started the company proper once we started hiring here in Brooklyn. So I'm actually talking to y'all from the Activate office, but we also have our own office space out in Brooklyn. So that's just how valuable I found Activate and the New York City ecosystem to build a company, particularly in carbon and climate tech, that moved my wife and dog and cat out here to pursue it. I think that gives enough background on me, the company, and what I love about Activate. I'll let Gus take it away, but really happy to dive in if you guys have more questions later.
Good morning. Thanks, Garrett. The elephant in the room, you don't need a mustache to be an Activate fellow. That is not a requirement, but it might help. So I'm Gus. I am CEO and founder of Rockfix. What my company is working on is taking the waste generated from copper and nickel mining across the world and using it as a way to store carbon dioxide in mineral form and pulling out additional metals. A little bit background on me. Before I applied to Activate while I was working on my master's at Stanford. And before that, I spent a decade in the mining industry. Not Bitcoin mining either, but like real mining with rocks and metals. Worked all over the world, and I realized I think that there's something really important here that mining brings to the world, but mining's not part of clean tech. And I discovered the clean tech community. I discovered Activate, and I realized that this was the community where I could really bring myself and bring these ideas and build the solution that I think will make the world better. I think Eva mentioned that one of the best parts of Activate are the fellows. I really think that The staff at Activate is fantastic. One of the things, I'm just starting off with the cohort, and already I've had access to so many incredible opportunities and people, including the Frontier pre-purchase program, that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. So I think that the community of fellows, but also the community of staff for Activate is fantastic. The cohorts and the alums that we have, again, give us incredible access and incredible support. Right now I'm a solo founder, and having that community, I think, makes all the difference. But that's just me. Someone asked my last name, Gus Marquez. And yeah, don't have anything else to say, but happy to take questions in a couple minutes.
Great. Thank you so much, Gus. And we are almost at questions, which I know is everyone's favorite part. But first, I'm going to just answer or try to cover a couple of details that may answer some questions, and then some FAQ. Quick note, applications open next Tuesday, September 19th. So if you're not already on our list, you can go to activate.org/apply and you'll get an alert. Or if you just come to our website after Tuesday, you'll be able to start your application. We will be accepting applications through October 17th. During that window, we will have a number of other office hours. If you go back to our website, there'll be more webinars and opportunities, as I mentioned, to learn about different communities. There's also office hours during which you can ask specific questions as you're working on your application. There are general office hours, and we'll also be hosting some office hours specific to carbon management. Our review process takes us through the end of the year, at which point we will invite selected semifinalists to a video interview in January, and from those choose finalists for a finalist week at the end of February, and hoping to have folks confirmed by April and ready to start their fellowship in June of next year. So a common timeline question is, if I'm currently finishing my PhD, when would I have to be ready to start, et cetera? Like if you're part-time now or you're not quite there, you would want to, you'll have some time to build up toward it, but that the actual fellowship would start in June of next year. So it's a bit of time on both ends. Other questions? Oh, upcoming events, as I mentioned. Activate.org/apply really has all of the information you could possibly need about events as well as the application process. And then FAQs, one is, would projects focus on methane fit within carbon management? So Aaron talked about capture and removal, transformation, measurement, and storage. Methane has carbon in it. And so it is carbon management if you're doing any of those things to it after it's already been emitted into the world. Erin covered this one as well in hers, so thank you. I won't hit it too hard, but just we do get this question a lot. And basically, you can be in New York without doing carbon management. You can do carbon management without being in New York. We're sort of talking about them together because we do have that focus. And I share Andrew's bias that this is one of the best places in the world to start your carbon management company. And with that, I will stop sharing once more and we will open the floor to questions.
Hey, Eva, there was one question that I will flag. If you could go into it just a little bit. What is the travel allowance?
Thank you. Oh yeah, sorry, Karen. The travel allowance is currently $12,000 a year. And so that can be used for approved professional travel and also professional development. So some folks use it to go to conferences or work-related travel, for instance, to visit a customer or possible pilot site. You can also use it for things like a course, a conference, an executive coach. Those work expenses are approved by me as part of the process. And yeah. I don't want to say 100%. I don't think we have plans to change that amount for next year, but so I'm just saying that's the amount this year. Rick is agreeing with me. Okay, great. Sean.
Hi, Eva. We're in Michigan, state of Michigan, and our areas of interest are not in carbon removal, but in noise and vibration mitigation for the manufacturing industry. And I'd like you to recommend us the best fit communities, activate fellow communities for us to apply.
Yeah, thanks so much. The general feedback that I give folks is think about where you want to start your company. And that might be for a personal reason. Like if you're in Michigan and that's where you want to stay, you should probably start your company in Michigan. Or it may be, you know, because of the industry, right? Of the, like if you're working with manufacturing, especially if it's in heavy automotive and you're more likely to have pilot
Yeah.
customers in that region of the country, that's another reason to consider where you'd want to set up. And then once you've thought about here's where I want to start my company, then I look at the Activate communities and see what aligns based on that. And just like if you decided I'd prefer to be in Michigan, the Activate Anywhere community is currently the only option because it would be like that one you can be anywhere in the country and we don't have an in-person community in Michigan for now. So that would be my recommendation just based on that. But obviously, if you are interested or willing in relocating, then you can apply to one of the other 4 communities. I will also say you can rank communities. So if you're like, well, I prefer to stay in Michigan, but actually like I could see a benefit to being in New York, you can say anywhere is my first choice, New York is my second choice, and so on and so forth in your application.
Got it. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you for the question. Looks like we have a question from John.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I had a question about the what is the 100,000 research grant typically used for? You know, would it be to help assist projects that we're already working on, or should we be thinking about exploring new projects? Is it, you know, I'm just curious about like what's typically done for those.
Yeah, so the guidelines around the research grant is that it is to be used for research and development and service of the company. So in terms of whether it's something that you've been working on or whether it's something new, that depends on where you are in your growth, but it should be used for something that is, you know, driving forward the research and development of the company that you're building. Fellows will then use it within that common expenses, lab rent, and lab materials, pieces of equipment. It is also, you know, staff who are focused on research. So a lab technician, for example, you could pay a portion of their wages with that. So the guidelines are must be research and development. So for instance, you can't use it to pay your lawyer, but anything that you can say this is in service of the company's research and development is in bounds. Just to clarify on the recoverable grant part of it, what that means is you get the 100,000 during your fellowship when your company hits certain milestones, which I do not remember off the top of my head, were on the order of like a $5 million single raise or some other sign of success. We ask you to return that to Activate so that it can be used for future companies. But if you don't ever hit those milestones, then we don't recover it.
Gotcha. Just a quick follow-up. So I have a lab in Schenectady. If we use it to carry out research projects there, that's okay. It doesn't have to be located in New York City. That would be fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine. So yeah,
Okay,
there's
cool.
no restriction on where that money is spent.
Awesome. Thanks.
Also, I know Schenectady, and it was always a point of pride on college tours when I could pronounce it correctly. So I'm glad to have you on the call. I'm just checking the chat. There's a question from Milton. Since this event is recorded, Kerrigan, maybe I just want to double check this. I do believe that all recordings or Rick will be posted to the website. Is that accurate, or what might someone do to capture a recording of something they didn't attend?
Yeah, I can speak to this. So at the conclusion of the meeting, I would say maybe 24 to 48 hours at the most, we'll be sending a follow-up email, which will include that recording and the passcode. So you can just click into that. And I think they're uploaded either to YouTube or through the Zoom platform, but either way, you can access that video after.
Gotcha. And what about for recordings other than this one? Do you know if we keep those on the website, or if someone has a particular interest, should they email apply at?
Yes, I would say email apply at Activate with any webinar. If you think we have for a national webinar, we also have some general recruitment webinars, our former not BIPOC panel, our women's panel that we did last month as well. I would say email me and I'll take care of you, but let me know what webinar you're interested in.
Great. So I'm just going to drop that into the chat, or actually, yeah. So that email is apply@activate.org, which in addition to our website is a great place to, if you have some questions about your application, shoot an email, and the staff manning that will get back to you. Dean.
Yes, hi. I have a question. Can we apply for the upcoming New York cohort as a group of 2 or 3 co-founders, all based in the metro area? The group is as follows. One co-founder is more like business and general management and operations, and the other 2 are basically our chief scientist, and the lead hardware engineer.
Yes, I was looking for our FAQ to have the specific answer on this. The short version is we can have 2 co-fellows. I believe 2 is the limit. Rick, do you have the FAQ in front of you? I don't want to misanswer this.
I think it's only 2 co-founders. Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't to say many companies do have. So basically on the application, you can name 2 co-founders. There's usually a primary applicant and an affiliate applicant. And then both of those found applicants need to meet the criteria for Activate. And you should put the one who is going to spend the most time engaging with the fellowship as the primary applicant. Both the primary and affiliate fellow, if accepted, have access to all of our programming, all of our resources, and can share the travel stipend. We occasionally, but rarely, will fund both of those fellows. It is more typical that there is one fellow and the affiliate fellow is unfunded, but does have access to all the other resources. And then the additional co-founder, we have what we call non-fellow co-founders. So these are people who don't engage as much with the community or are welcome to, but not obligated, basically. And so we will invite those folks to events, to programming, to connect, and we are a resource for the full company during the fellowship. And so in that way, all 3 fellows or all 3 founders could be engaged at kind of different levels. But when you apply, you can put 2 people on the application and indicate who is the primary.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Aaron. Sorry. I appreciate it. Aaron has put the link to the FAQ about that in the chat. All right. It looks like John has another question. Go for it.
Yes, sorry. So when I look through the FAQ, there's a statement about laboratory space arrangements and access to laboratories. And I think, it seems like that you'd like us to partner with one of your partnered laboratories. I was just curious if you could speak more to that, and how much of that should we have figured out before we apply? Because it also says like you could kind of figure it out through the process, but I'm just curious if we should have that, pretty well figured out beforehand.
Yeah, great question. Activate wants you to be in the lab space that makes the most sense for your company. So if you have already identified one that works for you, where you're sort of outside of, you're not having massive IP issues, you've got the equipment that you need, and your team is working happily, we would never ask you to change that. What we do through our partnerships is to try to identify and connect you with other opportunities or alternates. And so some of those are full-time lab spaces. Some of them, like the CUNY ASRC, are more like fee for service. So maybe you just need a characterization of a certain product, and you can sort of connect to them for just that one service that's maybe not available in your other lab. So basically, we are more of a connector and service provider, and we're not lobbying for you to work in any specific space. And to the question of how much of that you have to figure it out. If you're already in a lab and you want to tell us about how you're thinking, we want to know how you're thinking about your tech and development, and showing us, the way that you're thinking about taking your technology to market through which stages, but you don't have to have actually connected or done that work. We understand that people are quite early or may not have the resources without the fellowship to get into a lab.
Got you. So not a requirement to work with one of your partnered labs. So if we were
not a requirement.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
The one exception I will say, some of the Berkeley has a specific partnership with the LBNL, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So if anybody on this call is considering Berkeley, that is not, sorry, Rick, I keep putting you on the spot. I don't know the answer as to whether it's required or how that arrangement happens, but I do know some fellows are at the lab. Everyone's shaking their head at me.
Yeah, I don't think it's a requirement, right?
Okay, cool. But if you're interested in Berkeley, go to that webinar and learn more about their partnership with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. But we don't have any similar partnership in New York. Thomas.
Hi, thanks for the webinar. I was just curious, you mentioned in the previous question that we could apply to like multiple communities and rank them. how does that work in the application process? Is it first reviewed by like your top rank and then passed on if necessary, or how does that work?
Great question. Yes, exactly like that. So your first community will sort of get first dibs on your application, but in the event that they opt not to proceed, then other communities will have an opportunity to take a look. And so in that sense, it allows you the benefit of having additional options. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Other questions? John, go for it.
I'll keep going. So are fellows technically employees of Activate? And does that mean that, because it was in the FAQ too, does that mean that they they won't be paid from the company at the same time? I'm guessing, right?
Activate fellows are not employees of Activate.
Oh, okay.
Very specifically not. And so some folks are employees of their company and paid in that way. And Activate will pay your stipend to you directly, but it is a stipend, not a salary. And similarly for the health insurance coverage that I mentioned, we will pay you with your stipend a certain amount of money to reimburse you the purchase of private health insurance. So you're not an employee. And then the setup that you have with your company or how you want to manage your stipend varies a little bit from person to person. Yeah.
Gotcha. So if you commit work to like a NSF SBIR grant at the same time, that's all fine, I would guess, right? It's just, yeah, it's all.
Yeah, so Activate has a requirement that you commit to working 32 hours a week on your company while you're here. It is not quite a full-time fellowship. So basically for other grants, but we do not say that we limit you to a certain percentage or we limit you to working 40 hours in a week, right? So essentially lots of folks are on SBIR, other similar grants during their time in Activate. And other fellows can help explain the ways that they've worked through that in accounting. But yeah, so we try to build it with as much flexibility as possible for you.
Great.
Great. What other communities have next best support for carbon removal? That's a great question. Andrew, do you, or Aaron, any thoughts there?
There's the canned answer, which is like you really need to pick the community that's going to be best for your specific business. And yes, a lot of that does revolve around ecosystem support. New York has great carbon management ecosystem support, but that's not the whole shebang, right? There are other things to consider. So you need to pick the best community for you and your specific situation. That being said, we are opening Activate Houston. We're accepting our first cohort there this year. And just given kind of all of Houston's existing innovation ecosystem, that is just going to be a complete hotbed for carbon management. So I would say that would definitely be a really interesting place to look.
Great. Other questions before we close?
I could have one more, I guess.
Go for it.
Could you just give us any insight on what we'll have to prepare for the application? I saw some brief notes online, but I haven't seen the full thing yet.
Yep, I will start, and then Rick, maybe if I miss anything, or Andrew, you can jump in. So there is like a 3-page 2 to 3 pages that is the vision for your company. You want to tell us about the technology, any proof points or data that you have to demonstrate that it works, and then a bit about the vision for the impact on the world, and the sort of your projected go-to-market and business strategy. So it's a relatively brief written document. In addition, a few questions about you as a person that are more like a web form, short answer, medium answer length, and a 1-page technical brief that really goes into the details of what I mentioned before of here is my technology and here is some evidence. So overall, relatively short written document. You can submit supporting documents if you like in the form of papers or other elements to support your technical explanation. Andrew, anything else that seems worth adding there? Okay.
The only thing I'll add, Eva, is I think there's a 3 slide of the technical vision that we're asking for this year and a 1-minute video, I think that we also did.
I believe we are not doing the video this year, actually. Last year we did a 1-minute video question as an option, but I think I saw something that we're opting out of that this year.
Okay. And then I will say, just doing a plug for our, we're going to go over the application on October 2nd. So please sign up for that event. I put the link in the chat.
Okay, it looks like we have a question from Ling Wang.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a question. I have been working for a company right now, and then I can have an idea need to be commercialized. So if I apply this fellowship, then if I get involved with Activate, can I stay with my current company and then just continue the development of this new technology, just like applying for a grant? Or do I need to start a new company just to be a CEO? I mean, in other words, I mean, to be a fellowship of your program, do I need to be a CEO, a founder of a company?
Great question. So I got this question in the chat as well, and I would say you don't need to leave your company before you apply, but I think in thinking about how you're going to build out the company, it is likely that you would need to build a separate entity just for 2 reasons. One, we want the fellow to be in a position of strategic technical decision-making power in the company that they found. And 2, there are some eligibility requirements around the company in terms of not having raised more than 2 million in dilutive funding. And also, certain, like if you're delivering product to multiple customers, it's just probably too advanced for Activate support to make sense. And so in that sense, I think it's quite likely. And the other piece of it is you do need to be, as I mentioned, like basically full-time. And so it would be very hard for you to continue your work at your current company while being full-time on the second company.
A quick follow-up question. And I can work full-time, just like in my company right now. And I mean, it's just like a project of my current company, because I'm a research manager at my company right now. So it just kind of like start a new project and then applies whatever kind of a grant or funding. So is that possible? I mean, working like that way.
Andrew, do you want to give a little bit more color on that one or what you've seen?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are instances where someone still retains, let's say, a joint appointment with a university if that's helpful to them as a adjunct professor, for example, or something like that. But realistically, this fellowship is for someone that's planning on starting a company and commercializing technology. At the end of the day, what we want to support is commercializing new technology in the market and supporting the teams that can make the executive decisions on taking that technology to market. I will say that it will be tricky if this is under a separate company, because it doesn't give us confidence that, let's say, you or any other candidate that works for a separate company has the decision-making power to take that technology to market. So we are concentrating our time and effort to really support those management teams that have the decision-making and executional, powers to bring those technologies to market.
Yeah, thanks for your answer. Thank you.
Great. I see. I'm going to just really quickly, we had a question in the chat about the acceptance rate. I believe last year it was just around 10% of eligible applicants. So that it is a pretty competitive program. So I think Kerrigan also flagged the October 2nd webinar in the chat in terms of how to help you strengthen your application. So strongly encourage you to go to that and learn how to be among the 10%. And Michael, what is your question?
My question is, if an applicant comes into the program and they're using technology that has come out of a university, but they haven't completed the process of licensing the technology from the university, is that okay? Or should they have completed that and already have license to the IP from the university before they try to become an Activate fellow?
Yeah, great question. That's a very common position for fellows to be in at the start of their fellowship. So we would want to see, you know, sort of a plan of like, you know, how you're going to get the IP into the business, but you are not expected to have that finalized before completing your application. And it's something actually that Activate is able to help connect you to advisors and offer advice ourselves, because we have helped a number of entrepreneurs through exactly that situation. Rick or Kerrigan, I actually don't know the answer to this question. There's one in the chat around space to add letters of support to the application. I do know that we seek references later, but I wasn't sure about letters of support at the time of application.
We don't usually do letters of support, but yeah, like you mentioned, Eva, the references that we might check later should speak to both your technical and other areas of your interest as an entrepreneur and everything like that. So you should put folks who we can contact to ask those questions.
Thank you.
We won't ask that until later on in the application stages, though.
Okay, well, I'm not seeing hands or more questions in the chat. So with that, I would just really like to thank you all very much for your time. And a special thank you to Garrett, Gus, Rick, Kerrigan, Andrew, and Aaron for coming on to share your expertise with this excellent group of folks. I really hope you guys check out the website if you're not already getting lots and lots of emails from us, to make sure that you get signed up for updates. Check out the webinars upcoming about other communities, about improving your application, office hours, etc. And we wish you all the best of luck. I said this at the close of another webinar, but I'll say it here. You know, we mentioned the 10% acceptance rate. We really believe in the power of science entrepreneurs to change the world. And there are fortunately a growing number of organizations looking to do that, to help and support you. So I really just want to encourage you, whatever the outcome of this process is, whether you decide it's not a fit, whether you apply and don't make it, we really wish you all the best in your journey and look forward to talking with you more.